So in this next lesson, we're going to be taking a look at the production tracking process within X3. The purpose of the production tracking is as follows. In the manufacturing flow within X3, what you see is that you have a work order. And this work order is issued to the production facility. Okay, and so basically this work order, this document, is going to communicate to the production team how they should go about and manufacture this finished good. So some of the instructions that you'll see on your work order paperwork is you'll see, what raw materials should be consumed in the manufacturing process. You'll see details regarding the amount of processing time that should be spent at each work center. And you'll also see what finished good should be manufactured as well as the respective quantity of that finished good. Okay, so once the manufacturing team completes the work on the job, it's necessary to utilize what we call the production tracking function within X3 to basically instruct the system regarding, what transpired on this work order, what raw materials and maybe semi-finished goods that were consumed in the manufacturing process, how much of the finished good was actually made on the work order, and also how much time was dedicated to the job. Okay, so what the benefit of these production tracking records, it does a couple things for us. One, it helps us to maintain the accuracy of our inventory levels in the system. And in addition to that, it helps us to make sure that we realize the appropriate amount of labor and overhead costs. Okay, so a couple additional notes on the production tracking. Again, the tracking is made up of 3 different transactions: the raw material or bulk inventory consumption. There's a time tracking function that we'll see where we can record the amount of labor and machine time that was dedicated to the job, and we can also break that up on a setup versus runtime basis. There's a means of doing a production tracking to record subcontracting services. So if part of the manufacturing process of a particular product involves outside subcontractors, there's a way to recognize that within the system. Then finally, there is the what we call the production declaration, meaning how much of the particular finished good was made on the job. Okay, so within X3, there's a lot of different ways by which the production tracking is going to occur. And the method that we're going to review in this lesson is kind of like the base production tracking function, and it's appropriate for organizations that maybe are processing a relatively modest number of work orders, and those work orders can be processed kind of on a serial basis, one at a time. And the function that we're going to be looking at here is the respective menu path. It's under manufacturing, production tracking, production tracking. So finally here is a general overview of the manufacturing process within X3, and the segment that's in red on this slide indicates where the production tracking falls into the hierarchy. So again, we start off with a work order that's being generated. Typically it's generated either to fulfill an existing or planned demand, or just to fill out our safety stock concerns. Secondly, there's an allocation process that's run against the work order that'll go through and dedicate or reserve certain raw materials against the job. Next, there's a scheduling process that can be run within X3 to basically put the work order on the production schedule and to register the load against the respective work centers that are called out. The 4th step here is to print out the production paperwork and distribute that to the manufacturing team. followed by the step where the process through which the manufacturing team actually completes the job on the work order. Then the sixth step here is for the production tracking. So the the production personnel has completed the work on the job. They send that paperwork back into the production office. So then a production manager would go into the system to create the production tracking records against the work order to, again, consume the raw materials that were dedicated to the job, to indicate the amount of time spent on the job, as well as to indicate the amount of finished goods that were produced on the job. After this step is completed, the production manager would formally close out the work order to indicate that no further production trackings are going to take place, followed by a step where the cost accountant within the organization would review the closed work orders to ensure that there wasn't any mistakes made in the production process. Okay, to make sure that the expected cost of the job is in line with the actual cost incurred on the job. Okay, then once they complete that review, they'll go through a process of what's called finalizing the work order. Then the final step in the process is to run a function called in-process posting, which is basically the routine within the system that you can run to update your general ledger with all the results of these production trackings. Okay, so next let's go into the X3 system. Okay, so we're going to go under manufacturing, production tracking, and we're going to come under the complete tracking here. We're going to come over in our right-hand panel and click on the New button. And we'll go ahead and specify the manufacturing site that the job was processed at. After we define that, we're going to come in and click on the work order tray in the left list. And we'll go ahead and choose this top work order. So basically in this register here is all the work orders that are of a firm status within X3, or in other words, the work orders that are still open awaiting tracking. So let's go ahead and click on the first one here. So in this production tracking, we're indicating here that we're going to be tracking operation time, and that will be done on this operations tab. We're going to be performing material tracking, which is basically consuming the respective raw materials on the job, and those will be declared through this components tab. Then finally, we're going to be doing also our production reporting, which is going to be declared on the manufacturing tab. Okay, so in here we'll go down and click in this operations grid here, and this in part will load in all the work order or the work centers through which the job should be processed. So in this operations grid, we'll see that there are fields in here where the user can come in to update what the actual amount of setup time that was dedicated to each step in the middle, as indicating the actual amount of runtime. On the next tab for manufacturing, this is where we can come in to declare the amount of finished good that was produced. So in this case, we're manufacturing this FIN 001 product. We've made 1 unit of the product. Okay. If we were to make a quantity different than what was planned, it would be in this total achieved quantity field that you'd wish to update. You have the QC status of the product being manufactured. And in here's where you can come in and specify the location into which, the location in the warehouse into which the product should be put. Okay, so those are your major constituents of the manufacturing tab. Then finally here on the components tab, these are all the raw materials and semi-finished goods that are to be consumed in the manufacturing process. So here are all the components Okay, you have indications here of what operation step in the manufacturing process that the component should have been consumed. Then in here also you have your quantity tracked field. Okay, so this is where you come to indicate the actual amount of raw material that was consumed onto the job. Okay, in here, if you do location controls of your products, this is where the location from which the goods were pulled will be indicated. Then in addition to that, if your goods are lot controlled, this is where you can specify the respective lot number to be consumed in the manufacturing process. So with all those tabs being completed, we're at a point now that we can click on the Create button. Yep. Then it'll go ahead and assign for you a production tracking number that's linked to the work order. So now, upon creation of that production tracking record, all these raw materials and semi-finished goods that you declared on this tab, the Components tab, are going to be decremented in accordance with your track quantity. The finished goods that you indicated that you produced, those inventories are going to be updated in accordance with your total achieved quantity. Then back here on your Operations tab, all your labor and machine work center activity and those respective costs will also be tracked into the job. And that takes you through the production tracking cycle. Next here, at the end of the day, for instance, if the production manager wanted to run an inquiry so he could kind of go through and review all the production tracking records that were generated that day, if he goes again under the manufacturing block, then we're going to come down to our inquiry section under track. Then we're going to come under this option here for WO tracking, short for work order tracking. So we can go ahead and click on that, and that will come in here and show you all your trackings or against your respective work orders. So you got your work order number, your production site, the date starting and date ending. So in this case, maybe I would go ahead and filter on just today's activity. Okay, so then this is telling me here for work order ending in 125. Here on the manufacturing tab, this is the respective product that was made. Over here on the components tab, here are the respective raw materials that were consumed. Then finally here, these are the respective work centers and the time metrics associated with the job. So that concludes our lesson today for the production tracking. Again, taking a look at how to create the tracking records as well as how to perform inquiries to identify the tracking records that took place during the day. Thank you.